Hello everyone, my name is Natasha Dutton. I am the proud owner of a business called A New Dawn Recovery Coaching, which I have been in private practice in for about 10 years now. I am a certified addiction recovery coach specialist. I am a certified life coach. I am a narcissistic abuse victims coach and advocate. And I am a Theta Brainwave sound therapy healing coach. I am also a drug and alcohol recovered addict. I am also a narcissistic abuse survivor. I coach everybody in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in person. I have a mobile business, which means I go to my clients. I do not have a physical office, so I offer this very private and discreet service of going to them. I also coach anybody remotely that wish to be coached nationwide, worldwide. I offer remote coaching via either Zoom or Skype or on the phone. My website is www.anewdawnrecoverycoaching.org. Feel free to visit the website and browse. There's a lot to read about, some interesting things to see there, so I invite you to visit it. I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about who I am, what I have been through, which is a lot, that brought me here to do what I do, and I have a passion for what I do. I thrive by helping people. That's what I do best, and that's what I want to do until the day I die. So I was born, it was quite a dramatic birth. My birth mother abandoned me at the hospital. She was very young. I don't know much about her, only bits and pieces that I read in my adoption file, because she did not want to be found. But I do know a little bit about her, and I do know that I was the result of an affair. She already had, I think, 3 children. I was an illegitimate child, and so she could not keep me. She decided to secretly give birth, and she abandoned me at the hospital just a few hours after giving birth. So I was an orphan right at birth. She just left, she disappeared. She didn't tell anybody. She just left me there without any explanation or said nothing to anyone. I was adopted, I think, at about 5 months old. I grew up in a well-to-do family. There weren't really socialites, but kinda. I had a pretty good upbringing, went to a private school. I remember idolizing my father, my adoptive father, when I was a little girl. I really looked up to him. We spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of things together. We were pretty close. Not so much my adoptive mother. She was very wrapped up in herself. But anyway, when I turned about 12, my adoptive father and my adoptive mother divorced, which broke my heart. It was really hard to cope with that. After that, there was a disconnection between me and my father. We really didn't spend much time together anymore. He decided to get remarried, and I didn't really click with the woman, so we kind of, unfortunately, and it broke my heart, it really did, we kind of parted ways. It it was very sad. And that was kind of I want to say, losing him and being abandoned a second time, that was kind of like the icing on the cake for me. And so at the time I was very young. I was just entering my teens. So I decided to start hanging out with the wrong crowds. At about 16, I started, smoking cigarettes and sneaking and drinking alcohol and partying a lot, not thinking too much about school anymore. I started, dating boys and just being a bad, rebellious child. I didn't want to go to school anymore. I just wanted to just get numb, and just forget about the pain. So I started using at the age of 15, tobacco, smoking cigarettes and alcohol, and smoking, drugs as well, such as, when I grew up in the 80s, 90s, wheat was around, but there was also hash that people used to smoke quite a bit. So I smoked a lot of that. And it only got worse over time. My drug and alcohol use intensified. I left home when I was about 19 years old and started traveling, went to Europe, just with a backpack, sleeping on people's couches, bartending, working in, retail, and just living my life. I lived in London, England for a little while, for a few years. I lived in Brussels in Belgium. I also lived in the other side of Belgium, where they speak a language called Flemish. So I lived there and dated a boy there for a while. I was there for a few years. Brussels, I really liked Belgium. It was a great city to live in, and I met a lot of very interesting people. Got into the music industry. Techno was really popular when I was growing up in the 90s, so got into techno music, which makes you hallucinate. It's designed to, put you in a trance. So if you combine that with drugs, it will intensify the effect of drugs. So I was very much into clubbing and going to raves and taking ecstasy. And just over time, and by now I'm like 19, 20, 21, it just got worse and worse and worse gradually, to the point where I couldn't stop doing drugs. And I would not only do drugs, at night to go out, but I had to do drugs during the day as well, just to cope through the day and go to work and just cope with just being alive. I just had to be high all the time. So it was cocaine, speed, ecstasy, alcohol, heavy alcohol user, anything really. It didn't matter what it was. The goal was just to just get high and not feel the pain that I felt inside of being abandoned and not having a real family. And I just felt so out of place and not loved. And so I just looked for the comfort in the drugs and the alcohol. And then I moved back to LA when I was about 26, 27. And I met, I'm not going to say his name, but I met, my husband. I've only been married once. So I met him in LA. And we had a child, who is now a young adult. So we had a child, we were married, and it was, this man was very abusive. Yes, my husband was very abusive. Not in the beginning, I did not know what was really going on with him in the beginning. But, we were both using drugs and alcohol when we were together before my child was born, of course. So it made for a very explosive marriage. And I divorced when my son was about 5 years old. We went our separate ways. And at that point, the narcissistic abuse started. So I did not know it in the beginning, but I was married to a man who has narcissistic personality disorder. He started, like narcissists do, putting me down, gaslighting me, smear campaigning me. And it went on for years after we separated. He also, emotionally abused my son from the age of 5 and still does it now. I did not know what it was, of course. And one day I was talking to somebody who said, he sounds like a narcissist. He sounds like a narcissist. You should research it. And I started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, started, educating myself about it as much as I could. And sure enough, he totally fit the profile. So that obviously made my drug and alcohol use worse. It intensified it. I felt like, obviously had suicidal tendencies earlier in life, but started having those feelings again, resurfacing. So it was, it brought me back to hell, until the day I decided to go no contact, because a lot of times that is what you have to do with narcissists. You have to just completely cut ties and go completely no contact. So I managed to break free from the abuse. Unfortunately, to my great despair, my son is still involved with his father, of course, and he is still enduring the emotional and psychological abuse, and it has done a lot of damage at this point. So I know all about that. I'm totally qualified to advocate for victims of narcissistic abuse, and support. I want to offer support in any way I can, because I have been through it. I know what it's like. I have so many stories to tell. I've had a very, very interesting, nevertheless tough, tumultuous life. I've been through a lot of tribes and tribulations. It is kind of a miracle that I made it through, but now I've made it my mission to empower people, help those who are trying to get sober. For me, sobriety did not come easy. I got sober alone, with no support from anybody, because I was in the closet addict, a functioning addict. I did not share my addiction with anyone. Nobody in my family knew about it. My child did not know about it. I didn't share that with anybody. So when I decided to get sober, which was many years ago, I did it all on my own. I could not afford at the time to go to rehab. It just took a lot of patience and courage. I relapsed multiple times. I managed to quit drugs first, and nicotine, and many years later finally quit drinking alcohol. It did take me to hit rock bottom, to quit. And that's another video that I'll talk about that more in detail later. but I did it all on my own, so I know how hard it is. I know that pretty much always it doesn't work the first time when you try to quit. You will most likely relapse. I use hypnotherapy in my practice because it really goes to the root of the trauma and helps you determine exactly what started the addiction, what caused you to use in the first place. With hypnotherapy, you can really identify the root cause of the addiction and hit the nail on the head if you're willing. And that I'll share more about in another video as well. But I combine all of these things in my practice because those are all tools that put together with the sound healing therapy. It works. I've used sound healing therapy on myself, and I still do, because I'm not done healing. You know, I'm still in the healing process. You know, I've been through a lot of trauma, and the healing, you know, is ongoing, but I am now at a point where I'm comfortable, you know, talking about it and helping people and coaching people and walking them through it. I've been through it. I know what works. My modalities work. You just have to trust me, and you just have to wholeheartedly dive into it. You have to be willing to go and find the monster in the dark closet and look that monster in the eye and say, I'm gonna get you. You're done. And hit that monster on the head. You know, if you're not ready to do that, it probably won't work. But if you're willing to do the work and you're ready, all those modalities work really well. I've had really great success. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Go to my website. Once again, it's www.anewdawnrecoverycoaching.org. It has my phone number. It has a contact page where you can send me an email. I have my Facebook links on there. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. I'll be more than happy to talk to you and answer all the questions you have, of course. I will be making more videos, so you please just look out for those. Until next time, I wish you all the happiness in the world. Be safe out there. Wear your masks. Okay? Be safe, and blessings to everyone. Bye-bye now.